Welcome back everyone. In today's video I'm going to see if I can fit a 7 1/4 inch blade into my new table saw, which is an 8 1/4 inch compact table saw. Now if you followed me for a while and you watched my video on downgrade that blade, I took my old table saw, which I still have, I took the 10-inch blade out of that table saw and downgraded to a 7 1/4 inch framing blade. I did this for several reasons. One is cost. 7 1/4 inch blades are so much cheaper than every other size blade that you're going to come across. In fact, I usually buy them in packs of 3s or I buy them individually for cheap. In either case, I buy a bunch at a time and I usually stock up a little bit. That way I always have a fresh blade in the shop if I have to swap out the one that's in the saw. Now, the other reason why I downgraded to a 7 1/4 inch blade is because it actually generated a lot less dust. The kerf was nice and thin, so it actually gave me a cleaner cut than my 10-inch blade. But the downside to having a 7 1/4 inch blade is that in my old table saw, it wouldn't work with my riving knife. With the 7 1/4 inch blade being quite a bit thinner than my riving knife, it was causing all kinds of problems as well. In fact, it became a detriment and became a safety hazard. When I tried to use my riving knife with my 7 1/4 inch blade, what would happen is the kerf would basically bind on the riving knife itself and actually cause a bit of kickback, or it would jam up altogether. So it was actually quite dangerous to leave it on the way it was. So taking it out was the best solution for my old table saw, but all that is in the past. I now have my DeWalt 8 1/4 inch table saw that I've had since December, and I plan to keep the riving knife in the machine with the 7 1/4 inch blade. And today what I'm going to try to do is swap out the 8 1/4 inch blade with a 7 1/4 inch blade and see if it will work with my riving knife. The idea here is to keep the riving knife no matter what. Before I get into that, I have to check the thickness of both blades and the riving knife in the machine and see if it's even feasible to actually do this. Before I get started, I just want to say it is not the manufacturer's specifications to use a 7 1/4 inch blade in this 8 1/4 inch compact table saw, but I am going to do it at my own risk. So the first step is take my digital calipers, go over and get some measurements, and then change out that blade and give it a test. So with that, let's get to it. So it says right here in plain English, only use an 8 1/4 inch or 210 millimeter blade with this riving knife. And then it says to use a 1.8 millimeter minimum kerf width with this riving knife. So 1.8, and that's exactly what I'm getting on the blade here. At its thickest on the tooth is 1.8 millimeter. So for the 7 1/4 inch blade, I'm getting 1.7 millimeters. There is now quite a space between the riving knife and this blade. Yeah, the extra inch makes a difference. For a riving knife to be really effective, it should be closer to the blade. In fact, the riving knife really should be hugging the circumference of the blade in order for it to really work. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to do anything. It just means that when the kerf gets to here, there's nothing that's going to keep it open per se. It's got to go that extra inch. In order for a riving knife to be the best safety device, you don't want even an inch or even a quarter inch of travel. You want it to be very tight, and there shouldn't be that much of a gap. So now it's basically turned my riving knife into a splitter. So let's make the distinction. This is no longer a riving knife. With this setup, with this smaller blade, it is now a splitter. I'm making this change for myself. I'm taking that risk for myself. I don't expect anybody out there to do it, but I am going to give it a go and see how we do. I need to show you guys what the actual thickness of the riving knife is. So I'm going to measure that right now for you. And it's looking like 1.6. So that's 0.1 millimeter less than the Diablo 7 1/4 inch blade. So according to my calipers, the manufacturer designed the table saw with a riving knife that was 0.2 millimeters less than the thickness of the blade. And I've always said that it needs to be a little less than the thickness of the blade for optimum performance. I was a little worried at first that the 7 1/4 inch blade was going to be thinner than the riving knife, but it turns out it is just thicker than the riving knife by 0.1 millimeter. So we won't get any binding. When I just did my test cuts there, it ran smoothly. There were no issues. There was no kickback or binding or any of that stuff. So far, so good. Yeah, I'm not getting any friction problems. I will have to try it, of course, on slightly thicker pieces of wood, but I'm fairly confident that this is going to work fine with the 7 1/4 inch blade. The only problem that I had was I had to adjust the kerf in my crosscut fence. Because the riving knife is a little taller than the blade, it's not actually designed for the blade, I had to allow for that clearance. As you can see, all I had to do was make the kerf a little taller to accommodate the riving knife, and everything was fine. I could still use my crosscut fence. Now I may have to adjust other jigs as I go along, but overall, they're really just small adjustments. It's looking like the 7 1/4 inch blade is going to work fine in the table saw with the riving knife. Again, I will caution that it's not quite up to manufacturer's specifications because of the increased gap between the riving knife and the blade now. So really, it effectively becomes a splitter, not a riving knife, when I set up with a 7 1/4 inch blade. That's still a vast improvement over the setup I had in my rigid table saw where I had no riving knife at all. So I'm actually quite happy with the results of this test today, and I'm looking forward to being able to still purchase cheaper blades. Now, to be fair, we'll use the same brand comparison. An 8 1/4 inch 24 tooth blade, that's a Diablo, will cost me $27.97 at my local home store. But if I buy a 7 1/4 inch blade, it will cost me $14.98. And again, that's a 24 tooth blade, same brand, same performance. The difference in price is pretty huge. Of course, I can basically find the 7 1/4 inch blade for much cheaper than that. I've actually found 3 packs of them for $22. I don't always buy Diablo. I often actually buy DeWalt because their blades are actually pretty good. So it's whatever's on sale and I will stock up. But the 7 1/4 inch blades go on sale frequently. All the other sizes seem to stay around the same price all the time. So you really just have to shop around. Don't forget to check my web store for new woodworking plans. There are the big planter boxes, and there are raised beds. This is the time of year to get your spring projects going. So go check out the plans in my web store today. The link is in the description below. If you want to help me continue to make and edit these videos, head on over to my donation page right over here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. There are a couple more videos on this side you can watch. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.